So today we are going to learn the fourth chapter, Colonialism and Marathas. Now in the last chapter we learned about the spread of colonialism in India. Now Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj had foreseen the motives of the foreigners and their ways of infiltration. He already knew that what is in the minds of these people, of these British people, of the people who are coming from outside to trade with India. Now, he built up strategies to arrest their advances in India. India. The immediate measures taken by him in this direction included creation of a strong naval force and construction of sea routes. So he also decided now it's time to build our naval force. Now, he also levied the octroi on British salt trade as a measure to protect local salt trade. Thus, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj adopted a very strong policy against the European colonizers. Later, Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj also fiercely fought the Portuguese. Chimaji Appa, brother of Bajirao Peshwa I, defeated the Portuguese at Vasai. The Marathas were the only Indian rulers to adopt a policy of resistance against the European colonizers. Now, colonialism versus the Maratha Empire. Now, Portuguese, French, Dutch, British, all of them came to India as traders. However, they did not stop at that. In the course of time, they also grabbed the political power. It is often said that they came to India with weighing scales, but used swords and ultimately seized the Indian throne. The Portuguese were the first to arrive in India. They were mentioned as Firangis in this historical document of that period. Now, the regions under the Portuguese rule were mentioned as Firangan. Now, Firang means Indian sword made with Portuguese blades, and hence Firangis means the Portuguese, later applied to all Europeans. So they started calling Firangis all the other people also who were not a part of India. The Portuguese and Maratha rule or Maratha Empire. The Portuguese had their forts at Diu, Daman, Sanjan, Atori, Vasai, Karanja, Chol, etc. Because of these forts, the region of Bardesh was well protected. They used to store all the ammunition at Panvel. Now, Bardesh comes at the northern region. Now, the northern region of Goa was known as Bardesh. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj first came in contact with Portuguese when he established his control on Kalyan and Bhiwandi. The Portuguese were alarmed when Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj built a strong Maratha navy. Soon the Portuguese were brought to a point of despair by the Marathas. The Portuguese came to know what the Marathas were doing. In fact, the beginning, the Portuguese had extended technological help for shipbuilding to Marathas. However, the Portuguese governor of Goa withdrew this help. The Portuguese now promptly provided help to Siddhis when the Maratha army was organizing an attack on the Janjira fort against them. Both the Portuguese and Marathas, in the matter of diplomatic relations, adopted policies to suit the situation. Now, in 1665, the Portuguese waylaid 13 ships of the Marathas while it was passing by the ports of Karnataka coast, but later they released it soon. Now, in 1666, while the fort of Fonda, ruled by Adil Shah, was under siege by Marathas, the Portuguese supplied ammunition to Adil Shah. The Adil Shah is Kiladar. Adil Shah was a Kiladar. Now, when Mirza Raje Jai Singh had attacked Swarajya, the Portuguese extended support to the Marathas. The Portuguese established a factory at Dabhol by obtaining a sanction from Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. At the same time, the local people were unhappy because of the Portuguese law, which were favorable for religious conversions. Therefore, in 1666, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj decided to attack the regions of Bardesh. Now, in 1667, he decided to attack Bardesh. What did the people of Bardesh do? The people of Bardesh welcomed Chhatrapati Shivaji wholeheartedly. Again, when the region of Dandarajpuri under the Siddhi rule were under Maratha siege, the Portuguese supplied war provisions and ammunitions to the Siddhi. During the Adil Sultanate versus the Maratha conflict, the Portuguese were acting well, while acting neutral versus were helping Adil Shah. Prior to that, Gonzalo Martes, the Portuguese emissary, had met Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. Both agreed to avoid any future conflict between them. Now, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, with an intention of uprooting the Portuguese rule, started sending small groups of his men to Goa. Now, it was decided that once their number was enough in Goa, they would strike a revolt against the Portuguese rule. The Portuguese viceroy somehow came to know about this plan, hence the plan failed. A treaty was signed between the Portuguese and Maratha on 10th February 1670. So when was the treaty signed? It was signed on 10th February 1670. The following conditions were agreed upon. If either of them plundered the other ship, then the victim party should also be given to Maratha ships. To help be extended to the cities against the Marathas and not to build forts in the territory of Ramanagar, which was presently in a village of Jwara Tehsil in Thane. There was a dispute about the issue of collecting Chautai. Now, Chautai is a type of revenue which is collected from the external territories protected by the Maratha rulers. Now, it used to be 1/4 of the total income of the taxpayer. To resolve the issues of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj had appointed Pitambar Shenvai and Jivaji Shemvai as mediators. Now, is the person who sees the disputes of the two people. However, they were not much successful in their negotiation. In 1679, the Portuguese secretly helped the British in their conflict with the Marathas for Khanederi and Underi Islands. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj had determined to humble the Portuguese. There were many reasons for it, such as the Portuguese opposing the construction work by Marathas in Chaul, forcing their subjects in Goa for religious conversions, and pillaging of the trading ships. The Marathas defeated the Portuguese during the siege of the Fonda fort. In 1680, the Maratha army gathered at the Fonda fort. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj himself was to lead the camping, but for some reasons it could not happen. The panic felt between the Portuguese because of the warfare skills of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj is clearly reflected when the Portuguese governor said Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was no doubt a mighty warrior, but his strategies against the enemy during the peaceful times were much more daunting. Now, this death has relieved the Portuguese authorities from his terror. The Portuguese were in alliance with Aurangzeb, the Mughal emperor, against Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. Therefore, the Marathas decided to get against the Portuguese. Hence, Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj attacked Revdanda. The Portuguese reacted by putting the Fonda fort under their siege. Now, the Portuguese governor was injured in this battlefield, so he had to beat a retreat. Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj chased the Portuguese army, which got trapped in a deadlock. However, the news of the Mughal attack on South Konkan was received in the Maratha camp. Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj and his army, who were on the verge of conquering Goa, had to leave halfway and rush to fight the Mughals. Later, the conflict between the Marathas and the Portuguese were renewed during the reign of Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj. A treaty was signed between the Marathas and Hussain Ali Sayyid, the chief representative of the Mughals in the south, which gave the right of collecting chautai to the Marathas from Kalyan to Bhiwandi region. Accordingly, he asked Portuguese to make the payment. However, the Portuguese governor of Vasai refused to pay. To counter the Marathas, the Portuguese established outposts in Vasai, Asheri, Tarapur, Kelvi, Mahim, Daman, and Shawl. They also increased the intensity of their atrocities on the local people. Now, Shivaji Maharaj's young brother Peshwa Bajirao first was assigned to respond was assigned the responsibility of camping against the Portuguese. Now, in March 1737, the Maratha army conquered the Sashti Island. On another front, Shankaraj Phadke entered Vasai Island. However, taking over Vasai was not enough to establish a permanent control over the Portuguese territory until there was a complete victory. So the Marathas fought the naval forces, and they were fighting for 2 years for the Vasai fort, and they won. And they defeated the Portuguese. Now we have the next part, that is the Dutch and the Maratha Empire. It was the Dutch had an invincible contact with the Maratha. Sorry, invincible. Now there was a good contact with the Maratha rule when they established a factory in Venglora. This factory was also established in 1649, and the Dutch trade had flourished there. However, their trade was affected adversely when Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj attacked Kudal. In 1665, the Mughal governor, that is the Subedar of Surat, asked for help from the Dutch for destroying the Maratha naval force. However, the Dutch offered no help. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj had allowed them to build a factory at Dabhol, but for some reasons it never functioned. The political relationships between the Dutch and the Marathas kept changing to suit the need of time. The Dutch expected help from the Marathas to evacuate the British from Mumbai. The Marathas did not harm the Dutch factory when they ransacked Surat for second time. Now the Dutch factories at Porto Novo, Parangi Petita, the Tegnapatam, Devanapatam were left unharmed by Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. The French and Maratha Empire. In 1668, the French established their factory at Rajapur by seeking permission from Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. They supplied ammunition to Swarajya in return. The Marathas, remaining true to their friendly relations with the French, left their French factory unharmed during their second attack on Surat. In return, the French paid a big tribute to them. In 1677, Francisco Martin, the Governor General of Pondicherry, that is Puducherry, obtained permission for opening a factory there and an assurance of its safety. After the southern camping by Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, Maratha supremacy was established on the coast of Coromandel. Later, the rivalry between the British and the French got extended to the colonies in India as well. Now, they competed for dominance on various Indian territories. Both began to interfere in their administrative of the local kingdoms. The French gained entry into the courts of Nizam under the pretext of imparting military training. Ibrahim Khan Gandhi, a mercenary trained in the French, was hired by Sadashiv Rao Peshwa in the Maratha army as a chief of artillery. Artillery means weapons and all those stuff. In the Third Battle of Panipat, Mahadiji Shinde had observed Ibrahim Khan's skills. Inspired by it, he built a trained army with the help of D. Boigny, a French military trainer, and also established a well-equipped artillery. Now the British and the Maratha Empire. As we see, there was political relationships between Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj and British due to the Afzal Khan episode. Now, prior to the meeting between Maharaj and Afzal Khan, Dabhol was conquered by the Maratha army. At that time, there were 3 ships of Afzal Khan unloading in the Dabhol port. On receiving the report of Afzal Khan's death, Mahmud Sharif, his representative in Dabhol, took hold of the ships along with the wealth and goods on it and fled to Rajapur. Now, the Marathas took advantage of this opportunity to attack Rajapur and conquered it. Now, Abdul Karim, who had taken loan from the British, was unable to repay it. Hence, the British seized one one out of the 3 ships which were in Abdul Karim's charge. Of course, this was unacceptable to the Marathas and they asked the British to return the ship. The British refused to do so, hence, the Marathas detained Velaji, the local agent of the British at Jataipur. Philip Gifford, a British officer, visited Maratha camp to request Velaji's release, but he was also denied there. Later, both of them were released. However, the incidents strained Maratha-British relationships. When the Panhala fort was under siege laid by Adil Shah's army and Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was trapped inside the fort, Henry Revington, a British officer, Gifford and Velaji were supplying ammunition to Adil Shah's army. They were certain that there was no escape for Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, but he succeeded and escaped the fort of Panhala. Next year, the Marathas defeated the British in the Rajapur camping. The British officers Henry Revington, Randolph Taylor, and Philip Gifford were arrested and imprisoned for 2 years. Earlier, Lieutenant Stephen Eustick had met Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj on Raigad for obtaining permission for the British factory. He was also there for the coronation of Henry Oxenden was a British agent who was present for Shivaji Maharaj's coronation. Now he obtained the permission to open a British factory at Rajapur on 12th June 1674. An agreement was signed by the British and the Marathas. The following terms and conditions were included in the agreement: using permissions for the British to trade in Swarajya, to open factories in Rajapur, Dabhol, Shawl and Kalyan, right of the Marathas to levy 2.5 octroi on the British goods, etc. But Shivaji Maharaj didn't like most of the terms and conditions, so he could not agree with the British. This clearly reveals that the resolved policy of safeguarding Marathas' sovereignty. He was in favor of Maratha sovereignty. In times after Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj, Nanasaheb Peshwa took charge of administration. The British could ensure their entry in the political affairs of Maratha, and Nanasaheb on one occasion sought help from the British. Nana Sahib was succeeded by his second son, Mahadev Rao Peshwa. However, Nana Sahib's younger brother, Raghunath Rao, wanted to become the Peshwa. Raghunath Rao alias Raghoba approached the British for help as he got angry, and they helped him. Now in 1765, the British took over the fort at Malwan. After the death of Mother of Peshwa, his younger brother Narayan Rao became Peshwa. In his reign, the British tried to conquer Thane, Vasai, Vijayadurg and Ratnagiri. In the North India, the Mughal emperor was under the protection of Shinde Holkars. By this time, the British had become active to give custody of Mughal emperor and to reduce the power of Bose dynasty of Nagpur in Bengal. Now, for the British to bring the region from Shashti to Vasai to Konkan under their sway was a priority for trading operations. So Raghunath Rao Peshwa was offered asylum by the British. The British army marched from Mumbai to Pune with Raghunath Rao Peshwa in their escort. The British army and the Maratha army met at Telegaon, Wadegaon near Pune and had combat between them. The British army was defeated by the Marathas. A treaty was signed which was known as the Wadegaon Treaty. Later Nana Fadnavis formed an alliance of 4 rules, namely Peshwa Bhosle of Nagpur, Nizam and Hyder. However, the British successfully persuaded the Nizam to break alliances. The British governor Warren Hastings had realized that if the British had to establish a permanent rule in India, it was crucial to subdue the Marathas. In the Battle of Karhada, the Maratha army had a sweeping victory over the Nizam. The British envoy was spent in the Maratha camp, could minutely observe and study military tactics of the Marathas. Later, with the help of this envoy, Lord Wesley could defeat the Marathas. He learnt about the Maratha techniques. Now, Nana Fadnavis died during the time of Bajirao Peshwa II. The relations between Holkar and Bajirao Peshwa were not that good. So Bajirao Peshwa II ran to the British and they signed a treaty which was known as the Treaty of Basai. However, this treaty was not acceptable to Shinde and Holkar. Hence, there was another Anglo-Maratha war in 1803. The Marathas were defeated in this war. The third, the third Anglo-Maratha War was fought in 1817. The Maratha were again defeated and the Maratha rule came to an end in 1880. Bajirao Peshwa was granted an annual pension by the British and he spent the rest of his life in Bittur near Kanpur.